show.
No rules! That's what I'm talking about.
Dogs on the Run begins now.
To the Week 17 edition of Dogs on the Run. We're going to do things a little differently this morning as I'm Andre Knott. I'm here in studio in Cleveland. Andy Baskin is are you looking for like the next quarterback for the Browns? Where are you? Look at that setting you have.
He is way under there. I'm sure the next quarterback somewhere. Maybe he'll float to the top. I'm in Florida today. I'm on vacation with my family, trying not to wake them up. So I said, let's go find a really pretty spot out there. And so I'm halfway between Fort Myers and Sanibel Island. So there's a bridge that takes you out to Sanibel Island, and there's some places to park where people go to fish. So I just saw a couple guys go out with some pretty big reels and rods out there, trying to go get some stuff. But, man, it is absolutely beautiful here today.
Yeah, it's a beautiful setting. I'll give you that. I think this will make a lot of people feel a lot better when they wake up this morning and they join Dogs on the Run. You guys know the number is 216-431-3820. You can Skype us at Dogs on the Run. You can check us out on Twitter as the hashtag is Dogs on the Run. You can hit us up on Twitter at Andy Baskin. Do you have a little dash in there or no?
Andy underscore.
Yeah, you have the underscore. Mine is very easy, at Dre Knott. Team loses yesterday 20-10 to finish the season at 7-9, Andy. They lose their last 5 games in a row. And in a lot of ways, it's hard for some people to not sit here and say, same old story, same old dance. We'll get in and go back and forth. Is this the same old story? Is this the same old dance? But you go into Baltimore, all 3 teams in the AFC North end up in the playoffs. Is it fair to say same old dance, same old party, same old song? Or did you see something differently this season that we should squash that now?
I think the biggest difference, Andre, is what we're seeing today, that guys are actually getting called out, that they're being held responsible for what they're supposed to do. And I think that's a little bit of a change from what we've seen in the past. I mean, how many times before have we've kind of known some of these things, but no one's ever called anybody out. So you've got veterans on this team that want to sit out there and say, you know what, Johnny Manziel, you want to be in the NFL? That's not going to cut it. Josh Gordon, you did not work out for us at all. In fact, it may have been better off if you would have been suspended the whole season. So it's time to grow up for a lot of these guys. I think the hard part for me, Andre, is, especially with the young rookies that were having problems, the Browns should have known some of this stuff going into it when you draft them. And it's not all on – no, it is. It's all on the player, but the Browns should have known better if they were going to get themselves in a situation for guys that weren't going to take it seriously. Think about all the tests we talk about when they go to the Combine in Indianapolis. They're supposed to find out all these things. Whatever that is, that absolutely failed this year, especially when it comes to your first-round picks.
It's a great point. Let me say this. It's okay to take a reach on one player. I think you get in trouble as an organization when you start reaching on multiple players. Obviously, this regime doesn't have much to do with the Josh Gordon situation. He was here already. He was already a problem. They took him in thinking, hey, he's got a suspension. Maybe he'll get with our program and he'll help us out because it's a position of need. The concern, after what you just said, when you look at the draft picks, your 8th pick overall, really a wasted year for Justin Gilbert. I'm sorry. It's hard to find anything positive with Justin Gilbert with the 8th pick. With the 22nd pick, with Johnny Manziel, look, we can go back and forth on why he was drafted, why he was still there in the draft. Were the Browns the only team in the first round that were willing to draft him and take that risk? I don't know. That's a question that will always be out there. But you can even go to Terrence West, who was the 3rd-round pick. You're right. In the way they scout and look at certain players, they're going to have a long talk over the next few weeks of, okay, what do we need to learn about guys before we bring them in? Because the thing, and I said this last night, the thing about Justin Gilbert, I won't say this about Johnny Manziel. I think he's a whole different thing. But it felt like to me, and you've been in locker rooms, whether it's NBA, hockey, you know what locker rooms are. Justin Gilbert came off to me this year as a guy that was happy that he made it. Like, to him, he made it when he was drafted in the first round. You know what I mean? You ever meet guys like that like, hey, I'm in the NFL. I got a lot of money now. He never worked once he got to that point, Andy.
Well, Andre, I think it's true. I don't know if it's just football, but I think we all have kind of a crash after you get a dream job. I mean, Let's be honest. I mean, sitting in Nev's chair, sitting in Gibbs' chair, when you get that job, you sit around your whole life as a kid saying, man, I hope one day I would just like to be on TV in Cleveland. One day I'd like to do this. And then all of a sudden, the job is yours. And then the next question becomes, what are you going to do with it? And for the folks that can't get to that, what are you going to do at this point, that's where the issues come. And I think I think that's what happened with Justin. I don't know. You tell me, do you think that Justin Gilbert has more upside than Johnny when it comes to trying to get an attitude change here? Because, I mean, Johnny has been on the record saying, I'm not going to change. If he doesn't change, he's gone.
Yeah. Here, I said this last night. I think Connor Shaw will have a longer career than Johnny Manziel. Let me go back to your question, then we'll go to George and get this thing started. I'm going to say Justin Gilbert is more talented than Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel really has to have – he really needs to look in the mirror because not only is the partying and everything else a problem, I don't know if his skill set fits the NFL, Andy. I mean, you look at Connor Shaw yesterday, a guy that's not very talented, doesn't have the arm strength that's needed in this league. But you know what? He looked like he commanded the offense better. He understood the offense better. The team responded to him better. He looked like a guy that for 17 weeks went into the Browns facility and listened and did whatever was asked of him, was prepared. Now, talent we can't fault him for, but we can give him credit that he was prepared. And I got to tell you, wake up this morning, a lot of Browns teammates, a lot of guys he plays with on that team, I bet you if you put truth serum to them and you said, hey, we had to play a game in 3 or 4 days, who would you trust more, Connor Shaw or Johnny Manziel? I would say 98% of the room would say Connor Shaw. If you're Johnny Manziel and you know that, it's time to wake up.
I think you're right. The difference, I think, between Connor Shaw yesterday and Johnny Manziel in the limited time that we saw him, when Connor Shaw had to bail out and run, he looked like he was in control.
Yeah.
When Johnny had to bail out and run, it looked like all hell was breaking loose. And I think that was one of the biggest things. The other question that came up during the game, and Andre, we had talked about this last week, about scout team reps. Yeah. I mean, I've heard everything from Johnny never took any scout team reps to it was 50-50 to yesterday the broadcasters who couldn't tell Jordan Cameron from Cameron Jordan all said, that Johnny was taking the scout team reps. So a lot of misinformation out there, especially when it comes to what was going on in practice. So I'll tell you this, for what Connor Shaw was yesterday, they had a chance in the fourth quarter, and going into the game yesterday, I never thought they'd be in that position.
I didn't either. All right, let's go to our friend George, who's in Lakewood. Always good to talk to him. George, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much. And don't forget our Canadian friends and Boxing Day.
Absolutely. Boxing Day is always a big one.
Yes. Let me just quickly, the game yesterday, I don't know, it was more of a just timid, real timid, lethargic, boring game. But Connor Shaw hung in there. He really hung in there for a quarterback who just got thrown into the depths of starting 2 days before. He did a decent job. I was really, really happy with it.
No, I agree with you. George, did you notice the relationship he had with Brian Hoyer throughout the game as well?
Absolutely.
You didn't see that with Johnny Manziel, did you?
That is what a quarterback does. A quarterback prepares. He does not party at the 9. He doesn't party at the Hooley House or wherever. He prepares. I heard he also played on the practice team, a wide receiver and safety.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with him. And remember, guys, he was tutored by Steve Spurrier. I do believe he was a quarterback and won a Heisman Trophy. That's invaluable right there.
Yeah, he didn't win a Heisman, but he did have unbelievable records at South Carolina. Only threw 1 interception his senior year.
All right, now to the serious part, real fun part. Incomplete grades for our first-round draft picks. Incomplete. Gilbert might slightly. No, let me put it this way.
Yeah, they played 16 games. You got.
No. Incomplete. Both of them.
Well, here, I'll give you guys a stat. And George, I love you. I'm gonna let you go.
Okay, Andre.
It's good talking to you. Happy New Year. Take care, buddy.
Happiest New Year to both of you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it. This is what's scary, Andy. Obviously, if I had to jump in that water behind you, that'd be scary for me. But here's the scary. No, seriously. Now, take this in, and before you guys react, I want everybody to listen to this. Yesterday, when the Browns were playing in Week 17, 16th game of 2014, only one of their last 5 first-round picks was on the field yesterday. One of their last 5 first-round picks. Now, we can go through where Trent Richardson is, and we can do all of that. But you know as well as I do, and I think most of the people listening and most people joining our show, this is an issue, and I'm not trying to scare people. If you don't hit on your first-round picks year in and year out, it's hard to build anything. And when you don't have Gilbert playing, you don't have Manziel playing, you have Mingo playing with one arm, and I'm not going to say he's a bust, but he's probably not what you expected as a 6th overall pick, right? You don't have the guys from the previous year, Brandon Whedon and Trent Richardson. It's just a scary proposition that really in the last 8 years, 7 years, the only first-round pick you've hit on has been Joe Hayden.
Well, Andre, here's my point on that. That is a direct byproduct of ownership change, having a different general manager every year, having a different head coach every year. There's no way you're going to get any kind of consistency or you're going to be able to figure out what the ingredients need to be on this team when you're changing the formula for what you want to make. You got new Coke, old Coke, crappy Coke, and even worse Coke than that. And that's what you keep making every year with this team. So what are you supposed to do? I mean, I understand you need to hit on these first-round picks, but the philosophies are so different on what they want and what they're trying to figure out that it's not a surprise to me that they're a complete mess when it comes to that. And the fact that there's no excuse for that, though, Andre, other than the fact that your ownership has been changed over and you can't determine what you want for a general manager or a head coach or an offensive game plan or a defensive game plan. That's where the mess is. And until you get consistency, you can expect it to be a mess moving forward.
Absolutely. Best thing that came out of yesterday's game, in my opinion, Andy, is that the owner, who, you know, and you've been doing radio shows last week. I heard a couple of them before you took off. We were all kind of saying, what's Haslam going to say? When's Haslam going to talk? Came out right after the game, about 4:15, says, look, Mike Pettin will be back as my coach. Ray Farmer will come back as my general manager. Despite missing on certain guys and this and that and some of the issues late in the season, I thought personally, best thing that the owner could do, everybody, and look, because of what's happened in the last 2 seasons, obviously it's in the back of everyone's mind of, hey, could the coach be fired? Kudos to the owner for finally kind of getting it, squashing that so we can have a normal Monday where we're not all scrambling, wondering if the news is going to come down.
Here's another thing, too, and if you go back and look at the entire season, Jimmy Haslam did what an owner should do. He talked before the season. He talked after the season. You and I were kind of chasing something on Saturday night where we had heard some bubblings that maybe there were some changes coming, and I immediately found out, and we had talked about this too, that they were absolutely 100% not true. So that was a good thing. But again, Haslam avoids being a part of the drama when he talks at the beginning of the season and talks at the end of the season. And I thought his words yesterday were very good, even if Jimmy Haslam wanted Johnny Manziel on the field in the middle of the season to make the people that sold all those tickets happy. We never knew it. We never heard a word. There were no rumblings. He kept it to himself. For the most part, people were just speculating on what they thought. He stood out there yesterday and said what he said at the beginning of the season, pretty much, Andre, and correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't standing there when he said all this stuff, but he said at the beginning of the season, Johnny Manziel has to learn how to be a rookie. Yesterday, he talked about a kid who needed to be a rookie, who did not come anywhere near expectations for what they expected of him. And that's just not football. That's life. That's about being a professional. That's about working in an organization. And from what he said to me yesterday, he made me believe that he, Ray Farmer, and Mike Pettin are all on the same page. And despite the fact that you only had 7 wins and it might feel disappointing, I think that might be the most positive thing, that they all appear to be on the same page.
Yeah. You know, we'll get into the 7 wins and if that's disappointing or not. Me personally, I think this is huge for the Browns, especially if they can build upon it. But that's a conversation we'll have down the road. I know it's hard to take in when they lose 5 in a row in the month of December. But still, 7 wins is not something you expected, I expected, or anyone else. Speaking